test, test. Test, 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 test.
Can you hear that?
Test, test.
That's what you expect, huh?
Jewish scale. I can mute this. Do you want me to just leave it on? And then I can hit Friends, my name is Alex Felch. I'm the rabbi of the Jewish community in Lincoln, and it's an honor to be here with all of you. And on behalf of all of us, we want to extend condolences to Jim's entire family, to all of you, his beloved friends, to each and every one that perhaps is following us virtually, that could not be here inside the chapel with us. And on behalf of all of us, in following with Jewish tradition, the typical words that we say, in addition of obviously to offering heartfelt condolences, love and prayers, we say these words, which in Hebrew are pronounced like this: המקום ינחם אתכם בתוך שער אבלי ציון בירושלים וכל יושבי תבל, which means, may God comfort you among the rest of the mourners of Zion, Jerusalem, and the rest of the world. Friends, just before we continue, I'd like to kindly ask, respectfully request from everybody, if you have a cell phone, please make sure that it's switched off, that it will not be ringing or sounding with texts or anything else, and that you please put it away in honoring the memory of Jim, as so many people, his daughters, Harlan, each and every one of you are sharing beautiful thoughts about his life. Thank you. You may observe that his immediate family, his wife and daughters, they're all wearing a black ribbon on their lapel. And it's indicative, it's like an extension, if you wish, of our garment. And since biblical tradition, when a beloved one would die, would pass away, obviously their mourners would be heartbroken, and it's in keeping with those feelings that Jewish tradition teaches us, encourages us to tear a piece of garment as a sign of mourning. The ritual in Hebrew is called kriya, which means tearing, and the words that we say as we accept the divine verdict, and Jim was, of course, a lawyer. I'm sure that he accepted a lot of verdicts that he didn't like, but that's the nature of acceptance. In many senses, God is the true judge, so we need to accept the verdict. And therefore, there is a blessing that we say when we place and tear that piece of garment that says, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam dayan ha'emet. Praised are you, our God, Master of the entire universe, who are a true judge. And to that we say, Amen. And also, in trying to understand and accept as well, typically in Jewish tradition, we also quote from the Hebrew Bible, also known as the Old Testament. And in the Hebrew Bible, we recite a small section from the book of Job, who he said in the book, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, yehi shem Adonai mevorach. God has given, God has taken away. Praise be the name of God. So as we accept and as we try to cherish memories and provide comfort and support, at the same time we embrace the nature of our reality. Having said that, I'd like to open up by praising God. In Jewish tradition, we ought to praise God every day, every moment of our lives. In good times, for obvious reasons, to try to convey to the Almighty our gratitude as to how well our daily existence is going. And in times of sorrow, in times of pain, in times of loss, we praise the Almighty as the only one who can give us the courage, the strength, and perhaps the sense of faith to be able to go on with our lives. In Jewish tradition, we do so by reciting psalms, religious poems, according to Jewish tradition, written by King David. I'll recite a few of them, partially in Hebrew and in English, as a way to praise the Almighty. In Hebrew, why? It's the original language of the Hebrew Bible. That's why it's called the Hebrew Bible. So the most well-known psalm that maybe many of you perhaps remember is the 23rd Psalm. I'll read first in Hebrew. מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא אחסר, בניודש ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינהלני, נפשי ישובב ינחני במעגלי צדק למען שמו, גם כי אלך בגיא צל מוות לא ירא כי אתה עמדי. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, בשבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. He has me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He guides me on paths of righteousness. He revives my soul for the sake of his glory. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod do comfort me. You set a table in sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall abide in the house of Adonai forever. Also, from the words of our Psalms, from Psalm 24, לדוד מזמור לאדוני הארץ ומלואה תבל ויושבי בה. The earth is God's and its fullness, the world is his and all its inhabitants. He founded the world upon the seas, he set it firm upon flowing waters. Who may ascend the mountain of God, who may stand in God's holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart, who takes not God's name in vain, swearing falsely, he'll receive a blessing from God, a just reward from the God of deliverance. And also allow me to recite one more psalm, at least sections of it, from Psalm 121, again from the Hebrew Bible. שיר למעלות, אשא עינייך להרים מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם אדוני עושה שמיים וארץ. אדוני ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך מעתה ועד עולם. I will lift my eyes to the mountains, where is the source of my help? The source of my help is God, creator of heaven and earth. He will not let you falter. Your guardian does not slumber. Surely the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. He is at your right hand to protect you. God, your keeper, gives shelter. The sun will not smite you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you and preserve your soul. He will guard your going and coming from this time forth and forever. And indeed, friends, as we are gathered to give a physical goodbye at this time to Jim, I'd like first and foremost to say that I wish I would have met him when he was active in this life, and so much over the past few days that I've heard and learned about his amazing nature, bigger than life, the wonderful man that he was, and how he overcame all kinds of difficulties in life, especially after having served in the military, and how he lived with a certain level of pain as well, from wounds that he endured. And I wanted to share with you something that comes from the world of Jewish wisdom. Some things are very deep and philosophical. Others are maybe at times some folk tales that are narrated by rabbis in order to leave us with a message, with what is the moral of the story. So I'd like to share one that is very short, but also speaks about in some sense, in some way, in my mind, as to Jim's nature. So the story goes that a king once owned a large, beautiful, pure diamond, of which he was very proud, and it had no equal anywhere. One day the diamond sustained a deep scratch. So the king called in the most skilled diamond cutters, offering a great reward if they could remove the imperfection from his treasured jewel. But no one could repair the blemish. The king was sorely distressed. And after some time, a gifted craftsman came to the king and promised to make the rare diamond even more beautiful than it had been before the accident. And the king was impressed by their confidence and entrusted his precious stone to his care. And the man kept his word, and with superb artistry, he engraved a lovely rosebud around the imperfection, and he used the scratch to make the stem. It is not what we have lost, but what we have left that counts. And the scratch, the bruise, and the wound are there, but Jim left a precious stone, a portrait of beauty and charm, of activism, a great legacy. And even though he's not physically with his family and with all of you, dear friends, anymore, he learned to live with wounds and difficulties, and whatever came his way, he used it as a springboard to help others, to participate with others, to find joy in life, to find meaning in service to community. We call those things in Jewish tradition Gemilut Chesed, acts of loving kindness. And many of the rabbis speak about acts of loving kindness that are superior to other acts, usually compared to charitable acts in many ways. And they say that acts of loving kindness, like Jim engaged in life, are superior to charity in some of these aspects. They say that charity is only with money. Deeds, acts of loving kindness, Gemilut Chesed, are through personal involvement as well as with money. Charity is only to the poor. Acts of loving kindness can be done for both rich and poor. And charity is only for the living. Deeds of loving kindness can be done for both the living and the dead. And Jim engaged in each and every one of those categories, both, I'm sure, in charitable ways, but also in what Jewish tradition defines as acts of loving kindness. And now in turn, each and every one of you, his family and friends, and everybody that he touched, in turn now will do an act of loving kindness for Jim, which is those acts that we do, not just for the living, but also for the dead. And we are here gathered to honor his memory, to learn from his legacy, and additionally, and perhaps on top of everything else, to reach out with love and support, not just philosophical, but also in concrete terms, to all of his family. So, friends, may Jim's memory always remain for a blessing. May his soul be bound up to the bond of life, and may his beloved family always receive the love and the loving kindness from each and every one of us, from each and every one of you. May his memory remain for a blessing. Amen. I would like to recite a memorial prayer that in Jewish tradition is universal, can be done at any time and place for anybody of the Jewish tradition and anyone else that may not belong to the Jewish tradition. And it's called El Maleh Rachamim, which in Hebrew means God full of mercy. So what I would like to ask, with respect for everybody, whether you're Jewish or not, to please rise out of respect, because his name will be mentioned, Jim's name will be mentioned in this prayer. And everybody in the Jewish tradition carries a Jewish, a Hebrew, or Yiddish name for religious purposes. So we were trying to figure it out the other day. You know, we didn't have documentation in front of us to look at. Jim, by the way, and his late mom were very, very active in the Jewish community here in Lincoln. And unfortunately, I couldn't find those documents, but James in Hebrew is like the name Chaim, which is life. So, by the way, I'm a Spanish speaker, so James in Spanish is Jaime, which sounds exactly like Chaim in Hebrew, which means life. So his name, in my mind, is indicative of life. And I believe that we said that we are always the son or the daughter of our parents. We remember, though, that the name of his dad, if I remember that right, was Robert. And we decided that perhaps his dad's Hebrew name was Reuven. So there is no Robert in Hebrew. So oftentimes, many people in Jewish people, they receive a name in Hebrew that sounds a lot like the name of grandparents or parents, etc. So phonetically, it sounds very similar. So that's why we decided that we would call him Chaim ben Reuven in the Jewish tradition. So allow me to chant this prayer in Hebrew. I'll recite it in English. And after I finish, I'm going to walk to the back of the room and I will invite Michaela to follow me, okay? Not to follow me to the back of the room, to follow me up here on the lectern. No. So let me share the prayer, which I will chant. El maler rachamim shochen b'meromihim אמצעי מנוחה נכונה, תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים וטהוריים, כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים, את נשמת חיים בן ראובן, שהלך לעולמו, בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו, אנא בעל הרחמים, הסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, ונאמר, Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, full of mercy, grant everlasting repose beneath the shelter of your divine presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Jim, who has gone into eternity. May you, a merciful one, ever shelter him under the wings of your divine presence. You are his portion. May he rest in peace, in shalom. And let us say, Amen. Thank you. Now I'll invite Michaela.
Don't mind if I do. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out in a pandemic to honor my dad. He loved each and every one of you so much, and I believe that you all brought out the best in him in your special way. I mean, you must have, because he kept some of you on the roster for like decades, so there's obviously something special going on here. Anyway, your love and support are so meaningful and helpful right now, and thank you for being here and loving my dad. The city and the universe generally obviously benefited from Dad's years of civic service and contributions. You saw several obituaries and very kind things written about him, but perhaps less is known about Jim Gordon, father of 2 and later 3. A brief side note before I delve into it here. Incredibly, he has swept the prestigious Father of the Year awards every year since 1978. And it looks like the stars are in alignment for him to sweep 2021 as well. I mean, he died, so that's gonna garner some points with the judges. Anyway, it's only September, but we'll see. Doug Evans, youth soccer coach for 25 years, will tell you that in all of his years coaching, only a very small handful of parents came to watch their daughters play, came regularly to watch their children play, even less regularly to watch their daughters play. Well, guess who came to all my soccer games finding at least one reason each game to do that whistle that he did, you remember. And it's so, I can't do it, but it's so loud, deafening, I could hear it no matter where I was on the field. Also volleyball games, very loud in those gyms. And he came to all of my school conferences, during which he took copious notes. He attended and supported me through piano and clarinet recitals. I have two very brave and loving parents, and some speech tournaments. He was a very proud Papa Bear. And protective. Karen probably tells this story a little bit better than me because she was there. But I have had several rundowns now and have practiced a bit, so let me just set the scene for you. It's May or June 2010. I'm getting ready to take the bar in July. And I was also in the process of getting out of a very bad relationship. Karen could also tell you a little bit about that. We're in a house of God here, so I don't really want to go too far into it, but he was a bad man. I had moved out, but he wouldn't leave me alone. He's calling and texting me all the time. And I remember sitting in a cubicle in William Mitchell College of Law and like whisper crying to my dad, I'm so stressed out. I have to take the bar. This guy won't leave me alone. He's like, I'm going to call him. I'm like, okay, whatever, Dad. It's fine. I got to go to study group, but I'll talk to you later, okay? Whatever you got to do. I didn't really think he was going to do it. But then I got the report. A couple times now I've gotten the report, both from my dad several days later, and a little recap recently from Karen. But this is what really stood out for me. If you contact Michaela one more time, I will make it my life's mission that you never work in architecture again. Not just in Minnesota. We live in Minneapolis, and he is an architect, but in the entire United States. And then there's just some blubbering, and he's like, do you understand? Do you understand? I have not heard from this guy since, and I don't think I will anymore. So, looking out for his little girl. When he told me he'd done this, I thought, okay, he probably just like worked it in between maybe the morning firm meeting and a hearing or something. No, he was at home, sitting in their bedroom, just decided to make a phone call to someone that wasn't treating their daughter very well. So thanks for that, Dad. I don't think it was a very relaxing day for the fellow on the other end of the phone call. Another favorite, more frequent and less threatening episode, I can still vividly recall riding shotgun with Dad in his Chrysler LeBaron convertible circa 1992, with him singing along to Bruce Springsteen's Glory Days at the top of his lungs. Yet somehow it got even louder at stoplights. I was understandably equal parts horrified teenager, but also astute pupil. I am forever now a star in my car, and my daughters, Yvette and Simone, will get to enjoy that. And I think Dad will enjoy that too. Dad instilled in me a lifelong love of politics, especially local Lincoln politics, especially local Lincoln Democratic politics, and doing good works. He also instilled in me a love of the open road and the bright blue prairie sky. We owned 10 acres of land just outside town, and I remember riding with him on his red and white tractor while he planted row after row of trees, and our golden retriever, Jessie, ran around and swam in the creek. And I just wish I'd known how precious those moments were so I could remember more details, but the feeling that I have had stays with me. I have a very short poem. It's a mantra, really. It just sort of came to me when I was driving through Iowa recently. It was before Dad had passed, but the end was nigh. I'd just like to share it with you now. It's how I think that Dad lived his life and how I'd like to live mine. Reverence for the irreverent, help for the helpless, laughter for the best medicine, and love for all time. Dad, you are marvelous, and now the world is one marvel less. I will miss and love you forever. Bye for now. And never liking to be upstaged, though, I'd like to introduce my younger sister, Shannon Torini.
You say hi to everybody? Good morning, loved ones and dear friends, near and, don't do that again, and far. I've never live streamed anything before, and this feels kind of like an unlikely place to start, but we're going with it. So thanks for those of you tuning in at home. Stop doing that. Growing up Jim's daughter, a lot of characteristics rubbed off on me. Appreciation for puns and good jokes, or bad jokes, as it were, maybe some of the time. Remarkably loud sneezes. It was like, I don't even know how to explain it, but if you've heard him sneeze, you know. An aversion to being late for anything. If we weren't 30 minutes early, we were already late, as evidenced by just this morning, we got here at around 10 o'clock. This, of course, led to some degree of impatience, to which my forgiving husband can surely attest. Oh, also my nose. This is Dad's too. Yeah. One thing that I thankfully didn't inherit from Dad is his singing voice. Michaela referenced Bruce Springsteen really loudly at stoplights, but that was just the tip of the iceberg. I would say I'm a pretty average singer, I guess, which means it's not in the key of R, as Dad would always joke, perhaps most often after recounting the story of my first voice recital. Let's go back. I was probably 11 or 12 years old. It was Christmas time, and I had chosen to sing "Oh Holy Night," one of his favorites. I was nervous, but I knew if I could just get started, I would make it through it. I don't recall much about the actual performance, but I remember after the concert, even years after, it would come up in conversation somehow, and he would say, "I just had no idea she could sing like that." Okay, so maybe up to this point I've hyped it up too much, but as you probably guessed, and as is noted in your program, I'm going to sing for you. Or rather, I'm going to sing for Dad. Karen recently told me that he had wanted "Amazing Grace" to be sung at his funeral. So this is me doing that. And if I can just get started, I can get through it. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. Yes, it's happening. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. Yes, I know there are more verses, but I'm not super confident in the words. And frankly, it's a miracle I got this far. So you're on your own for the rest. I think Chris and Bob Rook in the back will help us out later. Dad, I sing to your grandson Quentin every night at bedtime. So tune in anytime for more songs. And in the meantime and beyond, I love you so very much, and I miss you more than I could ever express in song or otherwise. And now I would like to call up to the podium Karen's daughter, my bonus sister, and Jim's bonus daughter, Celeste Torrance. These shoes hurt, I'm taking them off. I already have blisters. My mom asked me to do two things in talking about Jim, and she asked me to not swear. And to talk about their love, and only one of those is hard to do. Because when Jim came into my mom and I's life, he changed it irrevocably, and so much for the better. I have never seen my mom as happy as she was when she and Jim were in their heyday. I saw my mom go through a horrific divorce, and I saw her act as a single mother. And I also saw the light that came into her life when Jim entered it.
And when Shannon and Michaela became a part of our family too, Jim reminds me a lot of my future husband. The happiness, the laughter, the kindness, the gentleness from a man larger than life. And Jim taught me not only how to see those things in other people and how to seek them in other people, but how to be them as well. He encouraged me to do so much through my high school years. And I'm a better person for him having been in my life. And even though I see how hard it is for my mom right now, I wouldn't trade the years that they had together for anything in the world. And I wouldn't trade my stepsisters for anything in the world. And thank you for sharing your dad with me. I can't talk anymore. Boy, thank God for masks, because I have snot running down my face. My mom also told me not to make it too much about myself, and here I am. Harlan Abrams, everybody, is going to play a song for you. Give it up for that guy. Harlan, come on.
Told me I had to use this for the live stream. Usually I'm used to talking to about 150 law students out there, and I never used a microphone, so, we'll see how this goes. Is it on? It's on. I'm Shlema Ben Volvel, which means I'm Harlan Abrams, and that was my Hebrew name, so we all had one. And I'm really, really honored to be here today. I want to thank Karen and Michaela and Celeste and Shannon for allowing me this little bit of time with you, especially Karen, who I know was the most amazing, loving, and kind wife during her precious time with Jim. Jim and I were moot court partners in law school, and this was before he had a mustache, okay? You'll remember that, right? He was a big guy. I was short and pudgy, and he was big and tall and majestic, but he did not have a mustache back then. And he was back from Vietnam, and they had taken over 17 months out at Fitzsimmons in Denver to put him back together. He was looking a lot better than I'm sure he felt during those days. But as moot court partners, we got to be very close, got to be best friends. We won a bunch of competitions. We went to New York and competed there and did fine, but who really cares about moot court this many years later? It's Jim and his magnificent, enduring character that we're here to remember today. It's not his legal achievements, and he really was a man of just incredible character. During a very messy time in my life, he let me crash at his place. Once upon a time, I was stranded out in the interstate in the middle of a snowstorm. I have no idea today why I was out there, but sure enough, James came out and rescued me. I often called him James instead of Jim back then, and I don't know why I did, but he came and rescued me in the middle of the night, and we stayed close for a while, but like many friends living in different parts of the country, we drifted in and out of each other's lives once upon a time. He was the first to come and the last to leave at my 50th birthday party. Not surprising. A few years ago, I came to Lincoln for a reading of a book that I had written about the changes going on in Cuba under Raul Castro. And Jim just insisted. I told him I was coming, I wanted to see him, and he insisted that I stay with him and Karen. I have to be frank. I mean, I was a little bit awkward and felt a little bit awkward, and those who know me know I can be a little bit of a quirky guy, and so I was a little bit nervous about it, and I came and we were sitting and chit-chatting and everything, and in blasted Celeste. Just right out of high school, she comes in, they start introducing us, and what comes out of Celeste's mouth? She goes, "You're Harlan Abrams." I couldn't deny that, and it had absolutely nothing to do with law school or anything that Jim had told her. It happened purely by coincidence that her teacher had mentioned my book in class, and she somehow recognized who I was. It was kind of, I was a bit taken aback, but Jim wasn't. Jim just kind of jumped right in with one of his usual self-deprecating jokes about something, and any kind of awkwardness disappeared. And we had a great visit, and it was wonderful. And he broke the ice, and that's what he did with everyone. After that trip, we tended to see each other a little more often. One time I took him out to Fitzsimmons to visit where they put him back together after the war. This one wasn't a funny trip. This was a pretty emotional trip. We talked our way. Fitzsimmons is a little different now than it was immediately after Vietnam. But we talked our way onto the floor where he was, and he wandered those halls, and he relived those months when they put him back together after the war. And it was a pretty profound experience to be able to share that with him. And then along came COVID summer number 1, last summer. And Shannon reached out to me and told me about Jim's condition. So I wrote a few lines for his memory book, and I wrote a little song, stupid little song that I'll play for you in a few minutes, because I've been asked to. And I had a real heart-to-heart with Karen, and I decided, you know, I need to be more in Jim's life. And we started Zooming every week. I couldn't come visit him, but we Zoomed every single week until the very end. And it was a very important part of my life, I know, to be able to see him and talk to him and hear his jokes all the time. And at first he remembered many of the times we had shared together. And when he couldn't, he would still listen to me ramble on like you're listening to me ramble on now, okay? And he was always filled with good cheer and laughter and jokes. We would joke about after COVID, I was going to come to Lincoln and we'd have a great big steak dinner, and we would tease each other. He liked it when I would play my guitar, which I'm going to do a little bit of, mainly because he'd never seen it. I only started a couple years ago, not very good, but I'm going to do it anyway. And every week, the one thing that Jim exuded was laughter and good cheer. That was his trademark. I don't even think of the mustache as his trademark as much as his laughter and his good cheer. And I do believe that Jim's real mission in life was to make everyone, his family, his friends, his clients, and most importantly, even strangers, people he'd never met before. His goal in life was to make them feel good, and he did. We all felt good. We all felt better for knowing Jim and being a part of his life. So now, I don't have the voice that Shannon does. You're going to hear that pretty soon. Let's see how this goes. This is the one Jim liked the